Right, welcome to Sam Obaseki, Dave Reed, Michael Britt and Zac Djellab from Football Daily joined us. Zac was supposed to be on a bit later, but with this Anthony Gordon news, we have brought in this Chelsea expert earlier on. He's hurried over to us because we understand Chelsea are now prepared to pay up to £60 million for Anthony Gordon from Everton. Remember that Everton's position all summer has been that the player is not for sale. Right, Zac, does this show how much Chelsea want him if they're willing to go that far?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember seeing when Richarlison moved to Spurs and saying that's a lot of money for a player who's probably going to be a bench option. And I kind of feel the same for Anthony Gordon. Look, Anthony Gordon is a fantastic player. Last season, we saw him really step it up for Everton. And someone that Chelsea, and I assume Thomas Tuchel, is a big fan of. He works really, really hard for the team off the ball. He's willing to play in several different positions as well, which is something that Thomas Tuchel will like. He's been playing number 9 as well for Everton. Very, very tough, especially for someone of his size. But he is very young. He's someone that can be moulded into whatever kind of player that Thomas Tuchel wants. He's someone that's fantastic for the England under-21s. And really, like, if you take away the money, it's a good signing. Yeah. It's just a lot of money on someone that I wouldn't have linked to Chelsea before the season.
Yeah, and I think he showed a lot of promise as well. You know, like Zac said, he was one of Everton's star men last season. He started the way he finished off last season, this season. And I think having Raheem Sterling and Mason Mount to learn from, to play, you know, to get that advice, to start getting the goals, the assists and adding that to his game, I think it's a really good signing. Yes, the price tag is quite steep, but at the same time, it shows how much Chelsea must rate him, how much Tuchel really wants him.
This will test Everton, though, as well, if this is the fee to be believed. It is a lot of money. You know, about a month ago, Tottenham wanted to do a package deal with, you mentioned Richarlison, they wanted Anthony Gordon and Richarlison. I think Everton's stance was, look, we can negotiate you with Richarlison, but, you know, Anthony Gordon is our homegrown, he's our boy. If you sort of drop your interest in him, we'll move on with Richarlison. So that was the Tuesday. The Friday, Richarlison signs for Tottenham Hotspur. So the fact that another London club, Chelsea now, are so keen on Gordon, very intriguing over the next few days, because if it is the money we're led to believe, it is big money. It would have to be considered, surely.
It wasn't just Tottenham as well either. Newcastle were looking at him earlier in the window, and then it soon became apparent that the money was just going to be too much, even for Newcastle in this transfer window. I mean, we don't know how Everton will react if this bid becomes a formal offer from Chelsea at £60 million, but you're right, it will test Everton. I will give Chelsea credit. I mean, they've been decisive, they've been clinical, they've been aggressive in this transfer market. Now, whether they've got value for money, I think that's a different question. They've paid a lot of money for Marc Cucurella, but they got it done. They paid a lot of money for Raheem Sterling, but you might say that was value for money when you look at the quality of the player that they've got. When it comes to Anthony Gordon, though, it's a kind of different level of player. As you've been pointing out, it's not someone who will maybe move the dial for Chelsea this season. It might be one that would develop as the years go on for Chelsea.
I want to hear from the Chelsea fans and the Everton fans on this one. Hashtag transfer talk. As you know, what do you think of the fee? What do you think of the player? And the fee there, we've discussed a lot there, Zac. But as for the player, you've called him a fantastic player. But where does he play for Chelsea? Because out-and-out striker, probably not. Out wide, you've already got options there. What do you think?
For sure, I think it's definitely one for the future. We've seen that with Chelsea as well, bringing in several players with an eye to the future. I think this would be the same kind of move. And I think he can kind of play in several different positions. He's played off the left for Everton, which Chelsea can do. He's played, I personally maybe see him being moulded into some sort of right wing back for when Reece James is playing right centre back. And then he can also play off the right wing where Mason Mount is. Chelsea are going to play a lot of games this season and throughout, you'd assume, the next couple of campaigns, close to wanting to go far in the Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, and so there will be minutes available for any of these kind of youngsters. But whether £60 million is worth the fee to just have someone on the bench, I'm not so sure about.
Dave, from the player's point of view as well, could you see that he might be keen to make this move when he sees how players like Mason Mount have developed at Chelsea? Tomori and Abraham, OK, they have since gone on, but they have developed at that club. Reece James, for instance, Conor Gallagher might get more of a chance this season as well.
Look at Ross Barkley, though, Everton.
Well, yeah, good point, exactly. There's both sides of it there, but you can see that most recently, players are actually getting a chance at Chelsea, younger players, and developing.
I think that will be the viewpoint of maybe him in the cold, hard light of day, and probably more likely the people around him right now. But for Anthony Gordon, this would be such a wrench to leave Everton. he's been the heartbeat of that side. He was one of the main figureheads that managed to keep Everton up at the end of last season. We saw the connection between Gordon and the supporters. He was whipping them up during games at the end of last season. And he has carried that side. I don't think it's too extreme to say that he has carried that side, not only with his quality, but with what he brings to that side in terms of the connection and the love for the club. So it would be such a wrench for him to leave Everton. If he does look at it in the cold, hard light of day, there's no doubt it's a development move for him to move to Chelsea.
And I think as well, look, if you're spending £60 million on a player, he plays. You can't really spend £60 million on someone and not have them featured that often for Chelsea. I think that's not something that we've seen. Chelsea have signed Cucurella and Ben Chilwell's now the player on the bench. Cucurella seems like the starting fullback. And so I feel like it might surprise us actually how much Gordon would play for Chelsea if he does join.
I'll tell you why it's a little eye-opener for me as well, is that we've obviously Todd Bowley's new, he's come in, they need to get a few more in, possibly a new director of football. There's been a lot of outgoings at board level. We look at the signings like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, when we look at the Cucurella, top players and players we know Thomas Tuchel likes. Thomas Tuchel, he likes to be the head coach. Yeah. He doesn't want to be in the boardroom. Sure. He doesn't want to be a director. But he has said that he's taken on more than he wants to in terms of negotiating. This, to me, looks like someone who's in a boardroom saying, we need more homegrown, we need more youngsters. That's the element of surprise I have.
Yeah, but I think it's a big step up for Anthony Gordon, but at the same time, like you said, he's bared that responsibility for Everton, keeping them up as well, playing a big role in that, keeping them up in the Premier League. And then this season as well, how, good he's been for them as well. And you speak to any Everton fan, they love him over there. Like Dave said, he gets the crowd going. So I think it's going to be a very good signing. He seems to, obviously his statistics aren't the greatest, but at the same time, because he's so young.
For Everton, though, those stats just show how important he is for Everton, though.
Yeah, definitely.
And in a team that hasn't been doing well at all.
You'd assume that for £60 million, that can change your whole front line. When you've lost Richarlison and you're getting £60 million in for Gordon, that can buy you two players to help suit that front line.
I have spoken to a couple of Everton fans, and the ones I spoke to actually quite think it's very good money. Now, you can have the money, you've got to spend it right. I remember when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale, they said they'd sold Elvis and bought the Beatles. But it didn't really work out in the end, did it? Because it was only really Christian Eriksen who stayed. So it's all well and good having this money. You've got to spend it right. But of course, Everton want to sell players they don't want. This is a man they do want.
Sure. Well, Dee says £60 million for Gordon. It's not my money, but pay it, just get it done. Richard said, I don't think Gordon is good enough for Chelsea. He hasn't set the league on fire at Everton and not worth £60 million. But for Everton, I think he might be worth it, though, as those stats just prove. And Liam says, an electric player Gordon is. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Being a Chelsea fan, the money does scare me, but you can see that Chelsea are building for the future with the 4 young players that we have signed. But at the other end of the scale, they're looking at another addition because they're in advanced talks to sign Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang from Barcelona. Now, the deal under discussion is thought to be worth between £15 million and £25 million. Chelsea want to include Marcos Alonso in the package, but Barcelona, they want straight cash. Now, in terms of Aubameyang coming into Stamford Bridge, good deal for you?
Yeah, I think something that we've noticed over the past couple of seasons is Chelsea need a goal scorer. 2 seasons ago, Jorginho was Chelsea's top Premier League goal scorer. Last season, it was Mason Mount. And by the looks of things and the way things are going so far for Chelsea, they need someone to be putting the ball in the back of the net. Aubameyang last season, obviously for Arsenal, didn't end fantastically, that's for certain. But we have seen the quality that Aubameyang has in the Premier League. He's won the Golden Boot. He's always been challenging for that title. And if Chelsea can get him in and he goes and contributes to 12, 15 goals, I think that's a fantastic price. It's someone that knows Thomas Tuchel very well as well. They've got a good working relationship. And overall, I don't mind it. And I mean, Chelsea have a pretty good track history of signing players that played for Arsenal and gone to do pretty well for Chelsea.
Did the Aubameyang move surprise you, Sam? Not in terms of the quality of the player or anything like that, but the fact that it was only 7 months ago that he was in the Premier League and deemed surplus to requirements.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise, just because he just recently signed for Barcelona. But in terms of the standard of the player and the relationship that he had with the manager, I think it made a lot of sense. When he was playing under Tuchel at Dortmund, he played 63 games, had 56 goals, 8 assists as well. When Tuchel was speaking about his relationship with Aubameyang, he praised him as a player, as a person as well. And I think Tuchel just wants players in his team that he can trust. Aubameyang is a certified goal scorer. When he was in the Premier League, he was scoring goals. Yes, the last patch at Arsenal wasn't great, but at the same time, you can say with the way Arteta was taking that Arsenal team, you can see he was looking for a younger, fresher squad. It wasn't necessarily that Aubameyang was surplus to requirements. It was just that he was trying something new. So I think Aubameyang coming to Chelsea would really work.
I mean, we talked about how Anthony Gordon is a younger player, and at Chelsea they have been developing some of the younger players, but Koulibaly is 30 plus,
for sure,
who's come in, and also Aubameyang 30 plus as well. Is there any worry about that too? Because in this show in the past, we've said that in the Premier League we turn our nose up at players and decide to end their careers far earlier, whereas in Italy, for instance, and other countries, they go on for much longer, as Thiago Silva's proving at Stamford Bridge already. So is it any concern to you that they're going for players who are maybe just getting to the end of their peak?
I think it's a nice mix, right? If you mix this with, say, the Gordon transfer, Chelsea are looking towards the future, but also trying to fight in the present as well. And when you have teams like Man City, Arsenal that are doing very, very well, especially at the moment, for looking into the future, when you've got teams like Liverpool, I know they didn't have the best results yesterday, but over the past few seasons, they're guys that are preparing for the future and also trying to fight in the present as well. And Chelsea need to do that. Over the past couple of seasons, obviously the Romelu Lukaku transfer didn't go to plan, that's for sure. And they've had to trust, say, Kai Havertz to play up top. And Kai is still someone who is very, very young, only 22, 23 years old. Mason Mount, 23 years old. Christian Pulisic, very, very young. Callum Hudson-Odoi. The list goes on. And so I think getting someone with a bit of experience can definitely help out. And as I mentioned earlier, Chelsea can play in a lot of games. You're going to still see the likes of Kai Havertz lead the line as well. And for someone like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he's still somebody that can give a good 2-3 years of prime Aubameyang, in my opinion anyway.
A few more tweets coming in about Gordon, which we'll read before the break. But in terms of another striker for Chelsea, they've been encouraged towards a second set of discussions on a deal for AC Milan's Rafael Leao. Now, the Portugal forward, he's been one of the most highly regarded potential transfer targets all summer from Chelsea, but they thought he was going to sign a new contract at AC Milan. That hasn't happened yet, so they're being encouraged that maybe this deal could get done as well. What do you think of that one, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be encouraging a team to spend 100 million on a player, that's for sure. That's because that's what it's going to cost you to get someone like him. He's fantastic. Again, he fits the kind of profiles we mentioned earlier of a young attacker that Chelsea are looking at. He's someone that has the potential to be one of the best players in the world, or have that kind of argument alongside the likes of Kylian Mbappe, obviously Haaland. He's a little bit younger than them, that's for sure. And he was kind of the reason that they won Serie A last season. He was fantastic for them. It was definitely his kind of breakout year for them last season. But it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to go and add to a lot of money that Chelsea have already gone and spent. I mean, again, if you take away the money side of things, it's fantastic. It's a guy that comes off the left, plays on the left, can play through the middle as well. Would probably like to work with a manager like Thomas Tuchel. However, if you do with transfers like this, you do need to look at that side of things, of the finance side of things. And when you're spending 90, 100, I think his release clause is something like 120. Well, there you go. Yeah. It's a lot of money, and you can't be then spending 200, 300 on other players as well. If you join Chelsea, fantastic. One for the future who's going to do very, very well, in my opinion, no matter what league he's playing in, and one that can be doing that for the next decade or so. But finances, something's got to add up here. You're going to have to start selling some players eventually.
Someone who didn't cost Chelsea anything was starting the other day, wasn't he? And someone you've monitored very much at Crystal Palace, Michael, in Conor Gallagher.
Yeah, when I saw the team sheet, I thought, this is a massive day for Conor Gallagher.
Yeah.
That feels unfair. Do you know, I just like a trial. And I didn't like the way I was feeling about it, but that's how I kept thinking about it as the match went on. It was a bit of a slow start. He was involved a lot. Good and bad, really. Yeah. I mean, then I look at him and think, is he in the right position? Is he in Mount's position? I know I spoke to him a few weeks ago in an interview, and he said, my loan days are over. I'm a Chelsea player. I love playing for Chelsea. I still get this feeling that we might be talking about him on deadline day if Chelsea get a few in, because I know there's a number of clubs who would take him in seconds.
Well, I mean, yeah, no shortage of takers, that's for sure. A few more tweets have come in. #transfer talk. Brett Hollins says that it's good business for Everton. On Anthony Gordon, this is not for Chelsea. He looks to have a similar type of player to Havertz, but without the goals. He says it's £60 million to sit on the bench. Kevin Burns, very different attitude. He says Gordon definitely has potential. Can you imagine the work rate, pace of my beloved Chelsea? We've got Gordon, Mount, Gallagher, Kante and Sterling. So good points there from everyone. OK, Zac, thank you very much
you.
indeed for your time this morning.